Hello, welcome all students, X-PiCAns and faculty colleagues to today's episode of season 2 of PiCA Thesis Forum. So this is fourth episode of season 2, and since we started PiCA Thesis Forum, this is the talk number 11. Uh, so, so we're going to have one more episode in this season, and then we will be taking a break for this season. And then again, after a few months, we will come with the next season at the appropriate time when the students would be interested in looking at their seniors' work. So as you know, this really gives a fantastic opportunity to our current students to look at their seniors' work. And so today we have Goran Ojha and Zaid Mukadam. So these two really talented and hardworking young men will be presenting here today. And this session will be moderated by Tamanna Parwani and Sneha Nair from 5th year. So let's get started and let's look at their work, and then we will look forward to having a discussion at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Very good evening to everyone present here. Our presenter for the day, our first presenter for the day is Zaid Mukadam from the batch of 2015. He gave his design dissertation jury and graduated in the month of October 2020. He seeks to pursue a career in advanced building performance, evaluation, and sustainable building design. His thesis topic, the Panacea, Acute Care Center, focuses on providing ingress of well-being or strengthening it through an architecture intervention aimed at bridging the gap between the marginalized sections of the society and access to quality health in Khed. I hereby invite Zaid to please share the screen and go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you, Tamanna, for the generous introduction, and thank you, PiCA, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to present my thesis on this platform. So I'll begin with the presentation. I hope it's audible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Zed, it is not.
Yes, sorry,
It is not audible.
it is not audible. Just a second.
Yeah.
Regarding the
Now,
acute healthcare service.
Yes, yes.
okay.
Existing scenario of public healthcare in India is in a condition what one would call unsatisfactory or substandard. Additionally, provision and access to such facilities has been a major problem in rural areas. This raises a serious concern regarding the acute healthcare services, majorly in the public and rural zones. Such is the case of semi-urban northeastern town of Khed in Ratnagiri district of Maharashtra state. Now, I have titled my thesis The Panacea because the word panacea means a remedy or solution, and I think I have attempted to create a remedy for the issues investigated. Now, how it has been done, the coming slides in the presentation shall explicate that in detail. I have structured my presentation into 5 segments. It begins with the research process, design development, all drawings and views, ARD, and finally ends with a 3D walkthrough. In this section, I'll briefly explain the research timeline followed during the 9th semester and the takeaways from the process to the design output. To begin with, a background study was conducted to determine the type and scope of the facility. This included studying the types, provision, access, and status of healthcare facilities from a macro to micro slash global to Indian context, followed by documentation of healthcare services in Khed. Next was to understand the healthcare field from books and as seen in popular culture. The next part was the user study, which consisted of interviews of medical fraternity in CADE, user-responsive design survey, and evidence-based design. After establishing that acute care hospital had to be designed, its core areas, departments, and functions were studied. Cases of architecture with respect to different aspects were studied. For example, Pass and Ponder Hospital to understand the functional aspect, Bethany Hospital to understand services, Pune Farmhouse and Shiksha Niketan to understand design of buildings in certain climate and site contexts, etc. After this, a potential site was selected based on research and mapping conclusions, and site analysis was done. The research concluded with the formulation of the design or area program. The background study helped me understand the healthcare realm in a deeper context and also identify the missing elements and dictate the typology of the design output. The user study helped me in proposing the architectural interpretation for my thesis and also understanding the needs of the user, which would make his or her stay in the facility more comfortable. For instance, this survey dictated the spatial requirements for the staff. Now, this page displays the evidence-based design comprised of spatial and functional analysis. For instance, from this, it was easy to conclude that waiting spaces had to be given much more importance than they usually are, because patients spend a lot of time there under stressful conditions. Bethany Hospital was studied live to understand the functional and services aspect of a healthcare facility, whereas the KM Hospital was studied to understand the influx of users at a public facility. The area of Bananaka was chosen since it was the central point that could cater to 4 talukas at the minimum distance. The final plot was then chosen based on the views, easy access and amenities, and proximity to National Highway Junction. The calm and beautiful views from the site are full of greens, hence allowing an extrovert nature of the built form. My findings from the research had to be concluded and concentrated as design principles based on which every design decision is taken. The principles are classified from the perspective of function, user, and sustainability. Functionally, factors like simplicity, clarity, sterility, and privacy have to be maintained in the building to achieve maximum efficiency. That required a strategic spatial distinction of zones and organized distribution of users. From the user's perspective, the building environment has to be tranquil and therapeutic. That requires access to natural light and air, views of nature, and provision of adequate break spaces and amenities. From the aspect of sustainability, energy efficiency and porosity of the building is essential. That meant the design of climate-responsive facade and provision of semi-open spaces, etc. Moving on to the next segment of design development. The plot is broken into 3 parts: site for future expansion, site as buildable portion, and the tree groove area. These are a few proposals of different accesses to the site. This is some work from the initial stages of development of design wherein I try to comprehend the best configurations based on certain factors. This is a diagram explaining the interfunctional relationships, the proximity chart, space analysis, understanding accesses, classification of departments based on security and privacy. All of this ultimately helped in the massing and zoning. Design is based on the concept of the spine, which connects and interrelates all different departments. But it is much more efficient to have spines segregated based on privacy. How it works and the advantages will be explained in the coming slides. There wasn't a sequence in which massing was finalized, zoning was frozen, and then I moved on to plans. All of this had to go hand in hand, mostly because of the complex functions and standards that had to be complied to, and hence the production of these various configurations that you see. This is the final evolution of the form from a traditional block to the final outcome. It includes distinction of zones, introducing courtyards and bridges, subtracting masses, etc. In the coming slides, I'll be explaining the entirety of concept and planning. Conventionally, there is one common path used by everyone. This is not very efficient and sterility is compromised. Hence, the allotment of spaces for different types of users increases efficiency since there is no interference between one another. That implies easy management of security and the crowd is segregated well. This is the public zone, clinical functions, and the private zone. The clinical programs are sandwiched between the spines. These are accessible by the general public from one end and doctors and staff members from the other. Support areas are connected via the private zone, which is restricted only to particular staff members. So all in all, privacy increases from one end to another. In the pertaining zones, spines act as organizer and distributor of the users who are patients, staff, and visitors horizontally and vertically which leads to easy wayfinding. Clarity is ensured by providing a clean corridor with basic services and core areas. The next essential concept was to design a lean and porous building that helps in reducing the width of the build form by introducing courtyards. This achieves better natural illumination and ventilation, which enhances user experience and leads to energy efficiency. Further, different blocks are attached using bridges or connectors which act as transition spaces on the inside. So a user, rather than just entering a door, experiences a transition in the spatial quality as he or she moves from one block to another. These bridges also segregate the build volume on the outside and cut down the bulk. This is the final zoning achieved after a lot of trial and error. As it makes more sense, more private areas are zoned on the above floors as the level of privacy increases as we travel upwards. The clinical programs are classified into three groups based on function and proximity. The first one being a critical block consisting of emergency, ICU, OT complex, and CSSD on respective floors. Emergency is on the ground floor for easier instant access. Next is the diagnostic and consultation block. Radiology is preferably zoned in the ground floor for proximity to emergency and also due to the presence of heavy equipment. The last one is the recovery block that hosts the inpatient department. This is the major segment which includes all the architectural drawings. The immediate site surroundings includes residential settlements on one end and an abundance of empty land on the other. Coming to the site plan, as stated earlier, there are multiple accesses to the site for efficient circulation. Two accesses are from the 12-meter wide main road, one emergency, and two general access, three service access from the rear road. The longitudinal site has been divided into four parts. 7 is area left for future expansion, 6 is parking, 4 is the build facility, and 5 is the tree groove, the reason why the rear end of the site was chosen for construction of the facility. On-site circulation will be explained in this slide. This is the path followed by an emergency vehicle, and 11 is the emergency drop-off. 8 is ambulance parking, and the emergency vehicle takes the same path to exit out of the site. This is the path taken by a non-emergency vehicle, maybe a staff, visitor, consulting patient, etc. 10 is drop-off point for the main entrance. The vehicle again uses the same path to exit out. This way there is no interference between the urgent and non-urgent vehicle, thus saving crucial time and life. For an organized parking solution, which could be a pay and park facility in the near future, this layout was adopted. 1 and 2 are parking entry and exits respectively. 6 is brisk park, 7 is auto stand, 3 is for taxis and online cabs, 4 is general four-wheeler parking, and 5 is for staff park. The small ones depict two-wheeler parking. This is the pedestrian path from parking to structure. Thirteen, 14, 15 are building entrances to support areas on west end through which the service vehicles like waste management truck or hearse van would easily do the transactions being concealed from the frontal main route. The existing tree groove at the rear end of the site is used to add elements of a sensory garden like wooden seating and colorful shrubs. Pathways/walkways are laid by connecting the tree centers, and hence the pattern formed is nature-driven. This area is a big plus point as it can be used by patients accompanied by staff for a refreshing morning walk, leading to a speedy recovery of patients. Before I explain the floor plans in detail, let's have a look on the ventilation and space quality of the spaces. Air conditioning costs account for almost a third or more of electrical costs in a hospital, and this layout is presented to show how the strategic massive configurations and favorable climatic conditions of the site help in reducing the dependency on any air conditioning systems, thereby saving on energy costs. Taking note from my case studies, I concluded that it was important to have a good balance between hard spaces and soft spaces to increase user convenience and comfort. The beige colored ones are the hard spaces which carry out purely functional and technical activities. The pink ones are soft spaces which are breakout spaces slash rest spaces slash meet spaces. All the basic services and core areas like stairs, lift, and toilets are embedded in the spine for easier access from each floor. On each floor plan, I've highlighted the main design elements, which are the spines and bridges. The position of the bridges clearly show the transitions happening from one block to another. On the ground floor, we have the public foyer. Emergency is placed on the front side. radiology in the center, and inpatient department is the farthest from the point of entry, having views of the tree group. To have a better look and understanding of the floor plans in detail, I will be presenting part plans. From my research visits to hospitals, it was observed that in public facilities, public spaces are poorly designed. There is either no adequate quality provision of wait/rest spaces, or the spaces are cramped and dark. On the other hand, high-end hospitals like Apollo have huge artificially lit and ventilated spaces. To tackle these issues, the public foyer is designed as a double-light, naturally ventilated space which welcomes the patient/visitor as he or she enters the public arcade awash with natural light. The user can easily spot the waiting areas, reception, amenities, pharmacy, and is also aided by the help desk for easy wayfinding. This space receives the morning sun, and lures create a beautiful play of light and shadow. Among the amenities, a public cafe is provided on the first floor, overlooking the foyer and having a beautiful external view. The usage of basalt stone and wooden lures is to create warmth and localness than to use foreign materials. This is an external view of the public foyer. Glazing is provided for openness and security purposes, but it has openable glass panels which allow favorable cross ventilation of fresh air. This is the floor plan of the emergency department. Conventional stairs are ditched to use wide ramps to reach the plinth level. This allows for the smooth and efficient movement of the patient from the vehicle into the facility, saving time and life. As you can see, we have a clean, unobstructed corridor in the private spine for smooth movement of wheel stretchers and the doctors and staff members. It is connected to the support area via bridges. There is the mortuary, mechanical area, and stores. 4 and 5 are female and male staff lounges with locker areas and changing rooms respectively. Instead of giving a centralized single lounge, I've given the small lounges on every floor to distribute the crowd and make it more accessible for the staff. Also, alternate floors have these double-height semi-open break spaces where the staff members can have some fresh air by taking short breaks from the tiresome long-hour shifts. This is the first floor plan with intensive care unit, outpatient department, and inpatient department. Moving on to the outpatient department, from my site visits, I have observed that the OPDs generally have a centralized layout with the waiting areas surrounded by rooms. Also, these pictures are from a public facility which depict long, narrow, and dark corridors and waiting spaces. When a patient comes for consultation, he or she is already in stress, and these factors add more anxiety. Hence, I designed an unconventional layout of consultation rooms with decentralized waiting spaces that have a view of the greens in the internal courtyard. This layout also ensures noise cancellation and cross ventilation, preventing the stagnancy of air. It also naturally eliminates the waiting spaces and a double loaded corridor. Decentralized waiting spaces and continuous flow of fresh air is also very essential in a pandemic situation and hence is COVID responsive. This is the second floor plan with OT complex, pathology, and inpatient department. There is an open terrace with herbal medicinal plants, public break space, and multipurpose area to incorporate any of the health sessions or presentations for the public benefit. This is a view of the open east terrace whose ambience can distract family members from the stressful situation. OT complex is a very sterile and crucial part of the hospital, and hence to design it, few design standards are to be strictly followed. The spaces of the OT complex are classified into protective, clean, sterile, and disposal zone. To move into the sterile zone, one has to go through the changing room which acts as an airlock. Here the doctors put on their clean and sterile scrubs. This also means that one cannot follow back the same route, and hence the circulation is one way to avoid cross-contamination. Moving on to one of the most important blocks, the inpatient department. The 12-meter wide IPD block has been designed by carving out masses to create shifting terraces forming spaces of recess. The desired form thus helps to break the monotony of the structure and makes it porous. The IPD block has further been divided into triple bed units and single bed units, which replaces the traditional wards in public hospitals. This helps to maximize patient privacy and minimize cross-infection, which accelerates the healing process of patients. These double-height terraces on every floor overlooking the tree foyer act as break/social spaces for the family members and visitors, thus preventing the crowding in patient rooms and corridors. This drawing is presented to show the details of the triple bed and single bed unit. Each unit essentially contains the patient zone, family zone, and hygiene zone consisting of a wheelchair-accessible toilet. The triple bed unit also has a common zone for circulation. The room layout has been designed following standards from IPH's guidelines, making minimal use of space to provide maximum comfort and privacy. This slide displays the details of the inpatient unit in an axonometric view with proposals of smart technology integration that can help in designing user-centered and energy-efficient architecture. Occupancy or vacancy sensor automatically controls the lights based on the presence of a user, hence saving energy and providing patient convenience. Curtains are conventional use for privacy, but they're a good host for bacteria. To counter this issue, smart glass can be used. The amount of light transmitted through it can be altered as per demand, thus ensuring privacy and sterility simultaneously. Proximity sensor helps in ease of access for patients in wheelchair and reduces manpower. The temperature sensor regulates the flow of air, which ensures thermal comfort of the patient and avoids wastage of energy, thus saving on costs. Radio frequency identification is used to track patients, staff, and even medical equipment. This ensures that all activities are carried out smoothly. As far as the material palette is concerned, quota stone can be used since it is not water absorbent and anti-slip, and hence the perfect and hygienic flooring for humid areas. Since copper has antimicrobial properties, hospital beds with high-risk surfaces can be encapsulated in copper. Latex paint for wall surfaces is recommended as it is non-flammable, dries faster, and cleans up with water. The use of natural materials like wood for furniture accelerates the recovery of a patient due to the psychological benefits of nature. This is the third floor plan. This is a view of the clean public spine corridor painted with different colors for easy wayfinding. The quality of space at every point keeps evolving due to the porosity, hence making it less monotonous and less boring. This is the view of the front/south facade, showcasing the main entrance, emergency entrance, exit road, and pedestrian pathway. A view of the internal courtyard. Terrace floor plan showing location of overhead tanks and solar panels installed. This section is cutting through both the internal courtyards. This is another section cutting along the length of the courtyard. South elevation, west elevation. Another view showcasing the facade. View of the rear side of the structure. The next segment is architectural representation and detailing. The hospital building is a RCC framed construction with shallow foundation. Grid dimensions are 6 by 6 meters and 6 by 7 meters. Filler slab is used as it provides thermal insulation, usage of lesser concrete, decreasing the building cost and overall reduction in dead loads. The building materials are chosen such that the consumption of energy in manufacturing and transportation is minimal, economical, and at the same time a material palette that would be close to nature. For the main building wall material, composite stabilized fly ash earth bricks are used. These are manufactured locally with the available laterite soil. As these bricks are stabilized, compressed, and cured, there is no pollution during their manufacturing. As compared to concrete blocks, which create 143 kilograms of carbon dioxide per ton, and fire clay bricks, which create 200 kilograms of carbon dioxide per ton, the composite stabilized bricks produce only 22 kilograms of carbon dioxide per ton. For the performance jolly screen panel, reddish-brown wire-cut bricks are used. As they are hollow with cavities, they are lightweight and absorb less heat. The accurate dimensions and finished edges give an aesthetic appeal to the facade. Basalt stone is used in corners for localness, and smart glass is used for fenestrations. There are three types of facade designs. The first includes a performance jolly screen panel made up of wire-cut bricks which transmits diffuse light. The ventilated air cavity allows very little direct heat to be transferred from exterior surface to the indoor environment, hence reducing the load on air conditioning systems. The next type includes recessed windows with greens and fiberglass planter boxes. Greens like fern and hedera help in detoxifying the air and filtering the heat getting in. The last facade consists of a highly performing wall made of two layers of bricks separated by an insulating thermal air cavity which blocks all the direct sun and keeps the indoor cool. These are the blown up strip section details of the facade designs explained. I wanted to prove that the design facade helped in reducing energy loads by decreasing the heat gain, and for that purpose, inside plugin of Revit was used. Cumulative insulation of the exterior surfaces of the structure before and after the application of the designed facade was analyzed. Direct and diffuse radiations on the principal facade were reduced by 60 to 80%, thereby reducing the energy loads. Daylight levels in the treatment, diagnosis, and recovery areas were constantly checked while designing to ensure that the application of double skin and brick jali does not reduce it beyond the accepted standard levels of illumination. This is just a sum of all the passive design strategies used via massing, planning, facade, etc. It was important to adopt sustainable practices in this non-urban project. With the adoption of rainwater harvesting system, water falling on the rooftop is harvested in an underground tank to be used for landscaping and maintenance purposes, and the excess water is recharged to the ground. Since the building is spread horizontal and vertical, it was essential to make use of huge open terraces to harness solar energy. This also shades the terrace slab, which in turn cools the temperature inside. So in this case, by installing 150 kilowatt on-grid rooftop solar power plant facing the south sun, the terraces could be efficiently utilized to harness unobstructed solar energy to produce approximately 600 kilowatt hour of electricity, which accounts for almost one-third of the average daily electrical consumption in this hospital. With this, we conclude the ARDA segment, and now I'll present a 3D walkthrough for you to get a better understanding of the project.
Thank you, Zaid, for your insightful and well articulated presentation. The second presenter for the day is Goran Ojha from the batch of 2015. He graduated in the month of October 2020. His thesis was featured in the Unbuilt exhibition at Udaipur Architecture Festival in 2020. He is now working on some of his own projects, both architectural as well as interior. Goran, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I liked Zed's presentation a lot. I hope that mine would be standing up to those standards now. So I'll be sharing my screen now. The BA course is one of the longest courses, and it has been an even longer wait for those giving their jury today. My name is Goran Ojha, and this is my presentation. So the topic of my thesis is Academy and Food Yard for Urban Agriculture. The first thing that we would do is figure out what the topic means. For that, I'll be breaking down the topic into three parts. The first half being academy, simply put, a college which has three different courses: agribusiness, horticulture, and agriculture engineering. We'll be getting into the details later. These courses will be affiliated to the Mumbai University in relationship with the IARI, that is, the Imperial Agriculture Research Institute. The second part is the food yard. Now, during my case study of the Agricultural College in Pune, I realized that there was a big patch of land dedicated solely to agriculture and producing crops which are then sold, which also helps in making the program viable. Just like a vineyard, where you can see the farm and its processing, the food yard showcases the whole process of agriculture. And the last, but the most defining part, urban agriculture. This term changes the way you look at the project. Now, what is urban agriculture? Well, you guys might know it better than me, but here's my attempt at defining it. It is the practice of cultivating, processing, and distributing food in or around urban areas. This can be done in various different ways. The changing times have introduced newer and more efficient ways of growing food in urban areas. Using the techniques of hydroponics, we might very well be able to grow food indoors without having to rely much on outdoor climate. The Academy and Food Yard aims towards shifting to these newer techniques of production and its manufacturing. The spatial requirements of the courses, like the experimental farms, would be replaced with hydroponic labs and terrace gardens. The whole food yard would be an indoor farm, growing and supplying crops to the surrounding urban land. As the title suggests, the only plausible sites to build the project are the developed or the developing cities. The developed cities are the ones which have their lands already in use for various purposes. Such lands have already displaced the green zones and are in need for vacant land and further growth in fields like residential, commercial, and industrial. In such a tight scenario, it would prove to be difficult to implement an urban farm or build a university. Therefore, we shift to planning out our designs on a developing city in a way which would prove to be effective to both the proposal and the people using it. Proposing on a site so that it leaves its impression and creates awareness amongst its people would be the ideal situation. Accordingly, we aim for a tier 2 city. The developing city of Vasai Virar is one of the most promising sites for the proposal of the program. The city is also a part of Mumbai metropolitan region and in a course of 10 years plans to have major reforms in its cityscape. Located at the fringe of the Vasai Virar junction, the Achole ground makes for an appropriate site for an academy. Having a close proximity to the station, it also eases the transportation of goods produced from the food yard. The site has a small patch of uncovered drainage line next to it and also holds close proximity to the highway. The site receives heavy rainfall and is surrounded by barren lands on 3 sides. The site is moderately contoured and goes up to 2 meters high from bottom level. After a brief about the site, we now move on to the program formulation. The proposal can be segmented into 3 different sections: the academy, the food yard, and the research development labs. For the college building, the first step that I had to take was to look at the different courses and their curriculum and accordingly list down the different spatial requirements of each course. Apart from the custom room requirements for each course, there are certain functions and spaces to every college facility like the offices, staff rooms, and libraries. This method helped me in figuring out the academic spatial requirements. The program formulation for a food yard turned out to be a tricky one. To figure out how much indoor farm would be required, one has to look into the efficiency of a hydroponic machine. And as it turns out, using the latest techniques of indoor farming, one can save up to 30 times of the land required in outdoor farming. Thus, keeping the Agriculture College of Pune as a benchmark, the amount of indoor farming area was figured by dividing that area by 30. Apart from these, there are also other room requirements which were considered during the formulation. The main purpose of the research area is solely to cater to the needs of urban agriculture, that is, the production of nutrients and research to make more food available through hydroponics. Along with these labs come more spaces that cater to the researcher like the offices, exhibition areas, and canteen. This gives us the final program chart listing down all the rooms and their required spaces. Now that we have a well-defined backbone for the program, let's move on to the concepts and the form development of the design. The primary concept of the design was to bring the farm as close to the people as possible, while also keeping it visible externally from all sides. Keeping that in mind, I started playing with the volumes in a way in which the 3 parts, the college, yellow, research, red, and the food yard, green, interact with each other without disturbing the functions of the other parts. The first 2 forms were a jumpstart at trying to define a form for the program, each with their merits and mostly demerits. The major issue of connectivity had to be addressed in the newer iterations. While the college building was consolidated into one structure, the food yard and research labs were still not connected. This would then create cross-circulation between the 2 programs. A solution was required wherein minimum cross-circulation takes place while the relationships between the plots remain intact. The final iteration provide a complete solution, keeping the cross circulations at minimum, while also bringing all the programs closer to each other and also providing with terrace gardens for practicals. We further proceed to delineating the final concept, starting off with the college building. While the ground floor, marked in yellow, provides admission offices, server rooms, and computer labs, the above floors have been segregated according to the duration of the course and its proportional occupancies. The 3-year courses of agribusiness, green, and horticulture, red, have been assigned spaces together with each floor dedicated to a given year. The 4-year course of agriculture engineering, blue, has been given its own separate space due to the higher occupancy. The hydroponics farm or the hydro farm has been segregated floor-wise according to the different machines used on each floor, and a common office and services space, yellow, is assigned to every floor. The aeroponics machine, which is the most sensitive and also the most highly efficient one area-wise, has been assigned the ground floor, red. The second in line is the NFT machines, or the nutrient film technique machines, which occupy the purple blocks. The top 2 floors, which receive ample sunlight, are occupied by the raft hydroponics, blue, and the vertical towers, green. The research area has 4 different labs placed on the outer edge, peach, with the office area in the center, red, and a small exhibition area below. This gives us our final design for the program. Now that the concepts and designs are clear, let's take a look at all the plans. Starting off with the site plan, we'll be talking about the site circulation. The array of users can be categorized into the following 5 sets: college vehicles, yellow; pedestrians, orange; supply and export of farm goods, pink; research and farm vehicle, blue; and canteen supply, green. The paths have been designed to keep the cross circulation to minimum. After entering the site, we now move to the ground floor plan. The 3 main users, that is, of the research area, production area, and the college structure, after entering through the main entrance, segregate to their respective spaces, thus still maintaining minimum cross circulation. Let's further delineate the ground floor plan, starting off with the college spaces. The ground floor has the common spaces like the offices, multipurpose halls, and computer labs. The ground floor of the hydro farm has a workshop area and a reception area for the offices above. Meanwhile, the people working in the aeroponics farm section will first go to their changing rooms from where they will enter the airlock before entering the farm area. This ensures a clean environment for the plants to grow in. The bottom spaces of the hydro farm here are associated with the procurement of materials and the export of packed crops. The ground floor of the research area is made into an exhibition space where one could showcase the newer techniques of indoor farming. The canteen has an occupancy load of around 450 people, which would prove efficient in catering the workers, researchers, and students alike. Moving on to the first floor, we again start by delineating the college spaces first. As discussed during the concept phase earlier, the college spaces is divided among its 3 courses, that is, horticulture, seen in B; agribusiness, C in C; and agriculture engineering, seen in D and E. There are 3 classrooms for each year, with the staff room placed at the end of each section. While the agriculture engineering section has its library at the intersection of the 2 arms, the intersection of the other 2 courses has the practical labs with the library of each course allocated on different floors. The hydro farm of the first floor grows plants using nutrient film technique systems, or NFT, and the vertical tower systems. Other than the germination rooms, we can also see the fire stairs placed at 30-meter distance from each other. The adjacent space to these farms is now assigned as office spaces. Similarly, the first floor of research area now has research labs and offices. The research area's workers in the labs have direct connection to the hydro farm through their individual airlocks. The second floor follows a typical layout of the first floor, except from these few changes. The hydro farm on this floor grows plants using raft hydroponics. The staff room below has been converted into the terrace gardens. The agriculture engineering section has its principal office on this floor, and the research area has its conference and admin area on the second floor too. While the research area and agriculture engineering sections end at the second floor itself, the third floor still follows a typical layout with furthermore layout differences. The hydro farm, which grows plants through vertical towers, has reduced in area while also having punches on its floor plates acting as a skylight on the floor below. The office spaces have their admin areas on the top floor. The library spaces are converted to the principal's office of the respective courses. Apart from these details, the structure also aims at being climatically responsive with simpler elements like the building orientation and plantation of trees, which help in providing shade and maintaining cooler environment. Now let's take a look into the different sets of features or design elements of the concept. The most primary one being the design of the hydrofarm. With the concept of having the hydrofarm stand out from all sides, the concrete framework of the hydrofarm is clad with oxidized concrete, giving it a strong red appearance, and the walls are made of glass and iron frames, highlighting or showcasing the activities happening inside. This also facilitates the entry of ample amounts of sunlight. Even the walls between the hydrofarm and college structure are made of glass and iron frame, as seen in this ARD section, thus maintaining a strong visual connectivity between these two parts. The college corridors would be showcasing the process of hydroponics at any given time. The office facade of hydrofarm, while following the same theme, has steel louvers to provide ample shade when needed. Secondly, the length of the structure might seem to some as an issue in the beginning, saying it might not get enough light and wind circulation. This issue can be easily tackled by implementing stack ventilation, in which vertically hollow spaces facilitate wind circulation due to the pressure differences in the indoor and outdoor spaces. These stacks also provide light to the corridor with their translucent skylight. During the concept stages, one might have noticed that there was a part where there might be a cross circulation between the hydrofarm workers and college students. But the rising contours of the site help in enabling this circulation without the two users crossing each other. The ramp at this junction makes sure that the two units have a smooth, uninterrupted circulation. Now let's take a closer look again at the hydrofarm, this time internally, while focusing on the complete cycle of a crop from seed to its manufacturing. The materials are procured in the loading area, yellow, from where they are shifted into a material prep room, green, for sanitization. Meanwhile, the worker of the farm have to change their outfits and then enter the airlock. The entrance to the hydrofarm is protected using the plastic curtains, maintaining a safe and controlled environment. The seeds are first then brought to the seed room, green, where they are grown into a sapling and then shifted to an appropriate hydroponics machine. After the crop is ready, they are harvested and moved to the packaging room, orange, ready to be sent to the nearby locations. The hydroponics machines have a constant water supply running underneath the floors for when the water evaporates, and the temperature and humidity are being constantly maintained by the HVAC system, monitored in the control red, which can also be seen in the previous section. The cast looms are placed on the external side of the college building so that they receive ample sunlight, have their facades bordered and showcasing the year in which they are currently in. The ducts have vertical green walls with creepers growing on them. The ARD strip sections here showcase the same facades, detailing out how the creepers grow at each level, how the hollow spaces in the classroom facade are utilized as drawers, and how the border frame of the facade works. The sections here focus on showing the same facade strategies from the inside of every year's classroom. The above section, which focuses on the college structure, also shows the library spaces and principal's office, along with the entrance and server room. The section below highlights the visual connectivity between the hydrofarm and the adjacent college structure. Along with the skylight and green wall facade, we also see the staircase and its facade. The mid-landing of the stairs is projected externally, connected by steel louvers placed at varying distance from each other, closer at the center, further at the ends. The windows provide abundant entry of natural light. As we had seen earlier in plans, the area above staff rooms has been dedicated to making terrace gardens. This strip sections and its details elaborate on how a terrace garden is worked out. The floor is made waterproof using polyester reinforcement, bitumen membrane, and gravel edge. The final feature of the structure focuses on the hydrofarm and the rainwater harvesting techniques implemented into the design. The strip sections and its details delineate features like rainwater downtake pipes, thermal screens, false flooring, oxidized concrete cladding, and roof glazing. Creating a hydrofarm calls for a more focused approach on its services. In this last segment, we'll be looking into the different systems utilized in the structure. We will start off by talking about the water supply. one of the primary services for a hydrofarm. The machines, which initially require a larger amount of water, do not waste a single drop of it and is recycled again. The only way in which water loss takes place is through evaporation. A water tank with a motor for the same cost is on every floor. These floor tanks are where the nutrients and other chemicals are added, supplied to all the machine from the water pipeline laid out beneath the false floor. The layouts are typical for the first and second floor, while the third floor varies due to its flow punctures. Second to water supply is the ventilation and air conditioning of these hydrofarms. Temperatures of around 21 degree to 24 degrees Celsius are maintained for efficient propagation of plants. The volume of each floor was taken into consideration while designing this layout. This whole system is maintained from the control room situated at the core of the hydrofarm. The second and the third floor have a varied layout again, owing to the hollow floors. The firefighting system layout is another essential aspect of these services with much importance given to the research labs. Having some really expensive equipment, it would be unwise to keep the sprinkler systems in these labs. Thus, these labs are provided with inert gas systems which stop the fire efficiently. Meanwhile, the rest of the structure has a sprinkler placed at 3 meters from center to center. The sewage water is treated in STP located away from the common areas. The treated water could be used in functions like watering the green areas. A harbor city like Vasai receives heavy annual rainfall which can be put in use in dry days. This has been calculated and accordingly designed. Finally, the electrical layout shows a generator room for when there is an electrical outage. And that brings us to the end. I would like to thank you for your time and attention. So I guess we are done now with my presentation as well.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Gaurang, for your elaborated presentation and for giving us valuable insights into your design process. I think we can now go ahead with the question answer session. I'll encourage the faculties, alumni members, and all the fellow students. They can feel free to unmute themselves or use the chat box for the questions. The session is open for discussion.
Hi. To begin with, I'll first congratulate both of you. And I definitely want to say that, Zaid, your presentation was really very well thought, well worked out and detailed. And it was very close to reality. The project, it appeared like so much real that if somebody would really take it and build it sometime soon, it appeared that way. So really, wonderful to see that, and absolutely a good project, because many a times we in DD thesis, basically we see some projects which appear quite hypothetical in that sense, and in sense of like idea level, we faculty also encourage, because we want to have fantastic ideas in among students, when you are doing these projects, because once you go out in practice, those opportunities get rarer. So we encourage thinking out of the box, and really having I mean, going to a place where even if it is hypothetical, that is okay. So that is the approach taken in academia very often. But definitely your project like felt as if some practicing architect is presenting soon and it is going to get built soon. So really congratulations to you there. And Goran, of course, your presentation too, it was like well thought of, the clarity and the way you explained your process. It's absolutely commendable. Good work there, Goran. So I think I'll definitely pass on to everyone else to kind of ask questions if they have about it. And just one typical question we always ask the presenters here, that is there anything would you have changed if you had a chance in your own project? Both of you, if you would like to comment on it. If you had an opportunity, what would you do differently if you have to do it again?
Thank you for the wonderful compliment, ma'am. Goran, would you like to take that first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks again, ma'am. Um, So, ma'am, actually, I've been thinking about this question for a lot of time, and maybe I would start again from scratch. The whole thing, I would do that again because while doing this process, I had tons of ideas to work with, and each with their own challenges presenting them. And the most challenging aspect was the services one. So this was the first time I'm learning how the things work in this, and that's why this project sort of was like my not my strongest attempt at designing it, because I can see more dynamic designs, more fun designs to work with if I had known the services earlier as well. So maybe where I was lacking could be the research again, which I hadn't done properly during the first sem. If I was strong over there, maybe the whole phase of this project would be something else, something very weird and fun to work
Okay.
with.
So it's like it wasn't typical Goran, what we saw you in the
Uh,
earlier years. You know, you used to love doing fantastic forms,
yeah.
you know, something, play with the
Actually, yeah.
forms. And that was the approach you used to take earlier,
Uh,
from starting in third year, fourth year or so, probably. Or even semester 9 design, you know, you played with forms.
mm.
But here, I guess you played it down, you know, made it.
Actually, I had been scratching my head as to how can I put my services in there, because it was a very services oriented project with all pipelines running everywhere. So if I and that is what I was learning through the process. How do I make this thing work smoothly? So that's where my focus changed while working on this design. If, uh, as you said, if I were given the second chance, I would be doing so with the standard Goran way that I work with, or a dynamic approach to it.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you there.
Uh,
Okay.
I think Goran is wonderful with forms, as we've seen him through these years. And for me, I went ahead actually with the feasibility. That was my major focus when it came to, as you mentioned, like, you know, how it is actually feasible. So that was my main concern. And I think it's too soon to answer like what more could we do. But I think there's one thing is the design of like the design, whatever we design, the design of structures from a sustainable aspect. I mean, I think I've done a very minimal job there, because sustainability is neither a concept nor is it optional anymore. It is the need of the hour. And I think sustainability has to be integrated right from phase one, from the design development stage. And it should be there, like it has to be there for your building materials. I mean, your thought given in building materials, construction technologies, form orientation, form evolution, orientation, the passive design strategies. So all of this has to be included to create a sustainable output. I mean, the basic reason being that we should be conscious of how our buildings impact the environment. I mean, with the climate change and all, it is very important to focus on that. And I have just used like plugin, the inside plugin of Revit, but there's an ocean of softwares and tools, for instance, to evaluate the performance of a building in terms of energy efficiency. So it should be our focus. We need to ensure that the energy consumption in our buildings is minimized to the greatest extent, and the minimum energy which is required for the function of the building, it you know, we extracted from the renewable sources. So I think that is what I would press on more.
Yeah, that's well said, Zaid, that sustainability is not an option. It's not something that you kind of add on later, or you
Yes.
know, it's just as integral part of the building, is as much as you can say structure. You know, you have to have your
Yes.
structure in place. So same thing about sustainability. It's not. It need. it should not be that, okay, that is my special aspect of my design, is that I have made a sustainable building. So that's not, those days are gone, and every
Yes.
building definitely definitely has to have all those features integrated, and there's no choice. There are no two ways about it. So that's definitely, I'm glad you made that point, because it is important for all the students who are here to know that. So I mean, it's like, say you have an option of making a net zero building, say for example, that you propose strategies to make it like 100% reliable on its own energy and not on outside
Yes.
sources. So that may be an option, but making a sustainable building is definitely not. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good point, Zed. So I'll pass on to Tamanna and Sneha if you want to say anything, ask questions, or
Yes,
check
ma'am.
on the audience.
Yeah, there's a question from the audience. It says, in what way can we make the translation of DD book into the design effective and convenient? Like, how can we convert the book into design more conveniently and more effectively? It's actually to both of you, Zed.
This question is from Sheta Rao, and she is asking, can I know what the topic of her DD thesis is actually? That would be fun.
Shweta, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Hi, Shweta.
Yeah. Hi. Uh, both the presentations were very good. I mean, it was illuminating, and thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
And as you asked, my topic is, learning environment based on Jiddu Krishnamurti's educational philosophy.
Oh,
Okay.
the topic itself is very intriguing. Okay, there seems to be many layers working under this title itself.
Yeah.
And your question was itself very strong, I guess. How do you translate a DD book into the design effective? Ah, as I said earlier, my research wasn't strong. Okay, I can say that to you after I've gone to this step. I've completed the whole process. So actually, what I would suggest is that you should start thinking of designing itself while doing the research. That is what I had lacked while doing this. Okay, if you're designing something like this, make sure what you're planning to do ahead. And the thing is, like I said, services. I was researching through what hydroponics is, how it works, how it goes about. But a, a and a hydroponic farm of such large scale requires a lot of services which hasn't been done before. And that was a very different challenge for me too. If I had done certain researches, if I had made certain points right there on in the DD book itself, then maybe the translation would have been a smoother one. So while making a book itself, try to think about the design also. This is what my suggestion is. Let's see what Zed says for the same.
I think like the dissertation process, like the dissertation part, I think it never ends with the DD book. I think it continues till the very end, because your research, your quest for learning more goes on until you freeze your plans. You need to really know stuff. And for example, even in especially in complex facilities like care centers and all, where many standards have to be complied to. So that is there. And like, I think as far as the translation is concerned, I feel that if you actually, for example, if you do your exercises of your user study, your functional aspects, if you hit these topics properly, then that way what happens is that you can conclude with certain design parameters, and then like once you are in sem 10, your concepts, you can club your concepts with these design parameters to create a design output, is what I feel. So I mean, like so these design principles will guide your every design decision. These principles every design decision will be based on these design principles. So I think that way it becomes easier if you actually conclude with certain design parameters and all, and then you can club it with your concepts. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much, both of you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well said there, Zaid. No, I just want to say that I'm glad you said that the dissertation part, the research part, doesn't end with the book. It actually, leads you to find lot more things as you get into design, and you start feeling that, maybe you really haven't researched enough. The way
Yes.
Goran's mentioned, that it's not that you did not, but you just find so many different new avenues to research about once you start your design. And it takes you to another level, and that is the reason it's a continuous process.
Ma'am, as I said, you start with the design process, and that's when you realize that you have some more research to do. So that's
Yes.
why my point was that you should think about the design from the beginning itself, so that you are not
Yeah.
missing out on those sort of.
Yeah, and the same thing with the area program. That one that
Yes.
goes in the book, it's never the enough or never the right one. It really evolves with your design. As you get into the details of knowing your users more and understand them more and more, and you try to cater to their needs and get into the intricacies of design further, you often need to research more, and as go visit your dissertation part again and again, then develop the area program. So it all evolves simultaneously in semester 10. That book is only just one notional kind of a point where you go and present your book to your jury, and and you bind it. This year it did not, like, it wasn't required to be bound, but at your time you did that. So that binding makes it feel as if the research is complete. uh, Writing with the golden embossing words and all, it feels like it's the end of it, but definitely that is definitely not the case. And same as I said, like, definitely the area program really evolves with your design. So that is something which all the students have to keep it in mind and be open to that idea. So it's not the final thing when you put your area program into the book. That's definitely just a starting point. Yeah, okay. I'll pass on to Sneha. She was saying something.
Actually, I have a question for Zaid. Zaid, your center, is there a possibility in the future that it could turn into a COVID facility?
In the future,
Yeah,
COVID
I mean, in
was
the
back in
current state,
2020.
current times, I mean, if you have,
Okay, so I think a literal answer would be no, because the feasibility of that happening is less. I think, like, mine is an acute care center. So what happens is that the patients are basically outcomes of cases of accidents and emergencies. So even in times of COVID or any other pandemic situation, cases of accidents and emergencies don't drop. They don't drop down just like that. So that has to be there. I can't just move that apart. And secondly, I think while designing this, COVID had struck us. So there were many things that I incorporated in terms of the design strategies, like the hygiene protocols and all. For example, like the open air spaces, or replacement of traditional ward system, bringing in more privacy, more hygiene. So I think that way, yes, I have designed the care center for a pre-pandemic and a pandemic situation. Okay, but it is not like you can directly just convert into COVID facility. Probably a couple of, maybe in that scenario, a couple of floors of the IPD block can be used for COVID patients. So I think that.
okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to ask questions?
All right, then. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. I really enjoyed,
Yes.
Zaid and Goran. Really enjoyed your presentations and enjoyed speaking to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank
Sure,
you so
thank
much for the
you.
compliments and everyone who has come to see our presentations.
Thank you, ma'am. It's been a long time since we have seen you all. So it was fun having this session, and we hope to see you again.
Yes.
I would like to end the session with a vote of thanks. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver this vote of thanks for this event to who all have been assembled here on the behalf of our team. A very hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers for gracing our important work and sharing with us your research and findings today. Once again, I thank everyone present here. Thank you, and see you all next season.
Bye bye.